Good evening. An annual survey of mining companies around the world has found that South Africa is now seen as a more attractive place to invest than it was. Last year, we were ranked at number 81 out of 91 countries. Now, South Africa's placed in the 56th spot out of 83 countries examined. The Fraser Institute's annual report says South Africa is now more attractive to miners. You remember that last year the mining charter was agreed to between government, mining companies and Labour. The Minister of Mineral Resources is Gwede Mantashe. He's also the chair of the African National Congress and he's here for you now. Mr. Mantashe, good evening to you, sir, and thanks so much for coming in.
Good evening, Stephen.
I presume you're pleased with this result. Why do you think that we're seen as more attractive to invest?
I'm pleased, but I think we can do much more better, because South Africa as a mining economy is quite up there. The fact that we're still seen at number 43 in terms of investor attractiveness and number 56 in terms of policy and regulatory certainty means that more work has to be done. And it is a result of working together with the industry, with the workers and the communities. In that discussion, when we're drafting the charter, it pulls us together. We begin to appreciate that we're only a sector when we're together.
So there are various things here. Firstly, there was a difficult time. You'll remember intimately, of course, what had happened before in the industry. Is this a perceptions lagging realities in that the mining charter has now been signed and people still need to come to grips with what the mining charter actually is? Or do you think government needs to still change legislation?
You see, when we adopted the charter and gazetted it, we took a decision that we don't think we should steam ahead with the amendments of the MPRDA, because we thought that what we agreed on in 2013 of developing a different and a separate legislative framework for petroleum sector would serve South Africa much better. We'll establish and grow that sector. It has a lot of potential. And it will compete with mining in terms of the space in the economy. And if we succeed in doing that, I think we'll do much better.
The Fraser Institute recognizes all the changes. It's quite complimentary about South Africa, but it also includes these quotes. And one exploration company vice president says this, quote, "South Africa's revised mining charter continues to be an absolute deterrent for exploration companies," end quote. Another exploration company's president says this about South Africa, quote, "Rules around mining ownership discourage investment." End quote. I mean, we don't know who these people are. They're kept anonymous for obvious reasons. But I mean, presumably, that's two people who you still need to do some convincing.
You see, if I knew them, I would visit them tomorrow. But I can't now. But I don't know if you know that once we gazetted the mining charter, De Beers started exploration in 126 places because they appreciated the fact that we removed the onerous requirement of BEE during the phase of exploration, because exploration, you are still looking. You are not sure if there is a mineral or not. We said everyone must go and do exploration. And once we did that, a number of companies begin to do exploration. Now, others want us to come with rules. Sometimes you encourage exploration by having no specific rules that force people to do certain things. But once people discover a mineral and begin to get into the productive phase of mining, then we say, meet the requirements of the charter. We think that is a correct decision. It is right to do. But the ownership, people who are having problem with ownership is because they don't know our history. And we have to convince them over and over about our history, that we're coming from an era where black South Africans were prohibited from owning anything by law. Now we must nudge established companies to support the emergence of these companies. But we're beginning to see results. If you go to the collieries, Stephen, you're going to find a number of small companies owned by young professionals. And the establishment of Seriti is not a small development, because we're having a big mining company, black-owned. If you take Exaro, it is 30% black-owned. All those programs are actually growing the confidence and space for black ownership. And that black ownership is not a deterrent. it is necessary for development. That's why I always ask the question, do people see transformation as a business imperative or they see it as a compliance issue? It depends on the attitude. If you see it as a compliance issue, you will tick the boxes. If you see it as a business imperative, you'll know that it is necessary to do it.
You have said, and I remember you saying this in press conferences, that it took the Afrikaans community a long time to create someone who would run a global mining company. Are you beginning to see our society change perhaps more quickly than it did for that community?
We've moved quicker. After 40 years of the Nationalist Party in power, there was not a single Afrikaner CEO in the mining industry. All the Afrikaner CEOs that you see today are beneficiaries of change in 1994. Getting black CEOs is moving much faster. Actually, I'm impressed by the fact that you're also beginning to see women taking critical position. Head of coal in Exxaro is a woman, head of Vedanda, Zinc International is a woman. You find a lot of them in the process. And I think transformation is beginning to happen, but it happens where companies see it as a business imperative.
At this stage, are there any changes being mooted, perhaps in the mining charter or elsewhere, that you think you need to do, something that you can change from a legislative point of view to make South Africa more attractive for miners?
My own view is that mining is well regulated, let's build the petroleum sector. Oil and gas is important here. If Total discovered more oil than gas, that would have been a game changer. But discovering huge deposit of gas is very, very significant for the country. That combination is going to change our economy. We want the petroleum sector to develop into a fully fledged sector that competes with any other sector in the economy. And I can tell you, once that sector is beginning to run, we're going to touch 5% growth in the economy and move on.
You sound very optimistic that we'll actually have enough petrol and gas to do that. What figures do you have that we don't?
No, it's because, I did something. I normally do things that people don't normally do. I took a helicopter to the drill, and I sat on that drill. Coincidentally, when I came there, it was when the drill was coming out of the hole, and they said, we've reached 1,430 meters deep. We think we've got it. And a few days later, they said, we found it. And I was excited. And I'm encouraging other governments to drill that have actually blocks in the ocean so that we get that oil and petroleum. We reduce our dependence on imported petroleum.
Just as we're supposed to be using renewable energy?
Renewable energy is necessary. It's necessary. But the mistake we can commit, Stephen, I want to make this point, is to think that renewable energy are enemies of coal, or coal is energy of renewable energy. Because if we do that, we're going to find unhealthy competition and efforts to destroy one another. My own view is that we need renewable energy. We need to meet our commitments that we have made globally in terms of clean energy. But we must, at the same time, encourage coal to invest on research for clean coal usage. And clean coal must be able to generate clean energy. We need both. For example, for if we use both, they coexist, we're going to be a better energy.
I mean, you say all of that, you'll know the sort of almost struggle that's happening around Eskom and its energy sources at the moment. There's I suppose, a coalition, a group of people who are opposing its efforts to have independent power producers that use renewable energy. There are coal suppliers, coal miners, NUMSA, the NUM, your old union, and various other people that are involved in this. Do you think that people in the coal industry now in South Africa then, if Eskom moves to more renewable energy, they'll actually have nothing to worry about? We won't lose jobs?
No. You see, you must look at all levels. I read an article over the weekend which was saying it is a mistake to think that moving to renewable energy will save the planet, you see. Because that author, who is a researcher, was saying to us, we must be reasonable and be balanced in doing everything. I love the concept of a just transition, but I don't think it is explained enough for people and society to understand what it means, how it will work, how do we transition from where we are to where we should be.
Bless you. Are you all right? Would you like some water? Minister Gwede Mantashe is the Minister of Mineral Resources. We're just going to let him have a quick glass of water while I prepare my next question for him. And I suppose there might be some coal dust there. Are you okay?
Okay.
Okay. Minister, can I also ask, can we talk about safety in mining? Yeah. There was the report on Friday. It showed that 81 people died in our mines underground in the last 12 months, in the period of 2018. AMCU, the Association of Mining and Construction Union, another union you might know very well, they've said there should be criminal charges for miners when miners die underground. You want a slightly different tack?
No. What I explained, and I think I followed the debate in the social media, attacking me as being heartless, a gushy minister, a person who has changed his views. My views actually, Stephen, you know that, take long to change. I don't change views. But I do research, I read. All I said was that law allows us to prosecute anybody who is proven to be negligent when you do investigation of an accident. But a rule that says, we must have a rule that says, once there is a death in the mine, we must rush and arrest CEOs, will create chaos. That's the point I made. Some disagree with me. I think I'm correct. There must be justice about establishing facts, take action based on facts, and once you see that there's negligence there, you can prosecute any manager. Actually, unfortunately, you can also prosecute middle managers and junior managers if they're negligent. Let me give you an example. You know, we had 3 disasters last year that pushed the numbers to 81, which should have gone down much lower. In that accident, a prospective chief boss who was acting, wanting promotion, took a crew into a closed area in the mine we call it Madala site. Opened it, went in there without testing the gases, no methane testing, no flammable gas testing, and people perished in that area. And what people don't understand is that in terms of the law, if that ship boss came out of that siding alive, he would have been prosecuted for negligence. So negligence, prosecution should be a function of an investigation and facts that back it up. That's my argument. But if we say we must have a general rule that there's a death in the mine, we must round up managers and put them in prison, that will be chaotic.
Okay, I want to talk about Xolobeni for a little while, and you'll know there's a judgment against you. You're appealing that case, or a judgment that essentially stopped mining of titanium in the dunes there. Why does it seem, let me put the question to you quite bluntly, why does it seem so important to you for mining to go ahead in Xolobeni?
No, let me give you this. The fact that Xolobeni is almost synonymous to Gwede Mantashe is quite instructive, because Xolobeni has been on the table since 2002. Okay, various ministers dealt with Xolobeni, various ministers were come and go, and I came a year ago. And I said, why do you allow one case to be on the table for 16 years? Let's take a process that takes that debate to the end. If we take a decision to mine, let's take that decision. If we take a decision not to mine, we must take that decision. That is the process that I am interested in. I'm not saying mine at Xolobeni at all costs. I'm saying let's take a decision, let's get the views of the people of Xolobeni. Let's do a scientific exercise of a survey and say this percentage agrees, this percentage doesn't agree, and therefore we can't go ahead. If it is too close, we will not go ahead, even if it's a majority. But you don't allow a decision to hover along for 20 years. You can't take a decision. The worst thing you do, Stephen, is not to take a decision. It's better to take a wrong decision than not to take a decision, because a wrong decision can be corrected.
Okay, but I mean, there's a court ruling that said no, and you're appealing it.
No. The court ruling doesn't say no. The court ruling says we must have a full agreement of that community. And you cannot know the full consent of that community unless you test it. Now, if you don't test it, people come to a point that says, don't even come here. It means you are actually not implementing the court decision. You are actually being negligent. You don't take your responsibility serious. And you must remember, Stephen, that I'm the Minister of Mineral Resources. See, in the state, there are a number of ministers that balance each other. One day, I will tell you the outcome of the environmental test of that area, compared Xolobeni to Wave Crest next door. The results of that issue, because government must balance itself when it does work. So, and actually, Xolobeni, when I went there, I said, Xolobeni is not about mining, it's about development. It's a very poor area, and I've identified 4 areas that need to be identified: mining, tourism, agriculture, and transport.
So for the record, you deny trying to push or strong-arm the community into accepting mining?
No, I have not. I've been accused of that even before I arrived.
Some of the problems in your portfolio are incredibly difficult to deal with because they deal with our history and sometimes our recent history. I mean, take the example of the Gloria mine around in Mpumalanga. So you had a mine in business rescue, so miners weren't being paid. You had criminals who came in and tried to steal infrastructure, tried to steal cable. They got trapped underground. People came to try and rescue them, and then the people who weren't being paid, the miners, tried to stop people from going underground to rescue them because they hadn't been paid. I mean, you're talking about a problem that's to do with our present, our past, all sorts of issues. How difficult is it to deal with a problem that's got that many elements to it?
And I had to deal with that area because workers were saying, don't rescue them. Well, from a union I know well, the National of Mine Workers. And I went to them, I said to them, listen guys, I'm very sympathetic with the situation in Optimum. I hope it will be settled this week for it to be operational next week. I'm hoping so. I'm not running that process, BRPs are doing. And I said to them, but the worst thing you can do as a union, a progressive union, is to be seen to be fighting with the dead. Let's take the corpses out. We have a responsibility to do so. Continue fighting for the rescue of Optimum. That was my argument. When they resisted that, I had to interdict them. And I told them that I'm going to interdict you because you're doing the unthinkable. You are fighting with the dead. You can't fight with the dead. It's immoral. And I took a flag for it. It's fine with me. Those corpses and bodies are out now. And what should be done is that they should be buried, and we continue saving Optimum.
Minister, can I ask you some political questions? We've got a minute left. Do you miss being Secretary General of the ANC?
No, I did that for 10 years. It took its toll on me. It was the most difficult period of a Secretary General. I enjoyed every moment, but I don't want to go back there.
And as chair of the ANC, is the ANC unified?
It's more relaxed now as a chairperson. I can say they must do that there, we must do that there. It gives me some life. I'm recovering from the scars of 10 years as Secretary General.
And how would you describe the state of the ANC now as you go into an election?
No, the ANC is going to do well. The ANC is going to do well in the election. Let me tell you one asset we're having. One asset we're having is Cyril Ramaphosa. Is quite an open-minded president. He has quite a good political and intellectual content in putting issues forward. And people understand him better. He's humble. He talks to everybody. There's an advantage that we don't have. He speaks all the 11 languages equally. And that gives us an edge. And the ANC works hard, even when there are contradictions. As a Marxist, I know that contradictions lead to forward mobility.
Gwede Mantashe, the Minister of Mineral Resources and Chair of the ANC, thank you very much indeed.